Okay, let's make one thing clear. There is no such thing as karma. There is no universal force punishing bad people. If that were true, the people screaming outside my window while I tried to record this video would already be in the fourth circle of hell. There are countless cases across history where the worst people ever have gotten off scot-free without even the slightest hint of retribution. And those are only the ones we know about. Just walking down the street in one day, you probably pass by countless people who have done unknowably heinous and cruel things, like being landlords. So in place of karma, humans created justice, ensuring those who have been discovered doing evil things receive an appropriate punishment. Inevitably, the core tenets of justice have bled their way into our media, influencing the stories and narratives that writers try to tell. However, every now and again, you will get a story that doesn't quite seem to satisfy that point of fucking around and finding out. Like, here's a scenario you've probably seen in fiction before. A villain, vile, sadistic, and inhumane. Their crimes are depicted to be of an unknowable scale, as if the writer was trying to illustrate suffering like the world had never seen before. Then we have the hero, someone with a certain set of idealized morals that you could never ever find in real life. And honestly, if someone did think like that, it would probably just piss you off. So finally, after a long, grueling journey, they confront the villain. And yet, when faced with the most evil being in the entirety of their fictional world, like this person is 9 out of 10 times the person who killed their parents and several of their loved ones, the hero still chooses to spare them. What are we doing? These are the kinds of scenarios I'll be critiquing in this video. Sarcastically, of course. If you couldn't tell, this isn't really a serious video. How such forgiveness falls apart when you actually begin to look deeper into the implication of these villains' actions, as well as some protagonists who don't fall into this trap and actually understand the point of getting the job done. Let's start with a personal favorite of mine, My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia is unfortunately one of those series burdened by a certain type of fandom, whose analysis of the series starts and stops by asking who's topping who. This of course extends to its antagonists, and from an outside view when looking at how the community treats these villains, one might be led to believe that while they are the opposing force in the series, perhaps they are somewhat decent people. They're not in the slightest. I'm just going to say it, every single villain in My Hero Academia who passed away before the end of the series is looking straight up. And despite this, while yes, the vast majority of them passed away, up until their very end, the heroes of the series were still trying to save them. Let's start with one of the only villains who was dispatched by the heroes on purpose, Twice. Twice was one of my favorite characters, and of course I do understand the sympathetic angle to his writing. He was mentally damaged by his own quirk, leading him to seek out people who could actually accept him, and the League of Villains was the only family who did so. However, he really just needed to die. I understand seeing how one of the heroes you idolize and look up to, Hawks, stab a guy on live TV can be pretty traumatic, but I feel like if they just explained what Twice's quirk did on the news, rather than lose faith in the heroes, the populace would just clock that it was what needed to be done. Like, if Twice escaped, the casualties of the war would have been exponentially higher, infinitely higher. Hawks is honestly the MVP. Then of course, we have Ochiko's final interaction with Toga. Honestly touching, one of the most beautiful scenes in the entire series. But I'm just gonna say it, Toga did not deserve to die that happy. While not as bad as Shigaraki, and I will get to that guy, we're still talking about a serial killer here. Not even a just one like Dexter, she just killed people for the love of the game. One of the worst scenes in retrospect is when Toga pulls up on Uraraka during the aftermath of the Paranormal Liberation War, disguised as an old woman. We know how her quirk works. She needs blood to use it. So just clock the fact that Toga either maimed or killed a fleeing old woman just to say hi to a girl who isn't even her friend. Like, she got off lucky. And finally, we have Shigaraki. Throughout the earlier half of the series, Shigaraki is more of a lower end street tier villain. While he did already have a couple killings under his belt, if they ended up keeping his damage down to this level, you could make an argument of him being saved. Rather than doing this, Hirokoshi took a more difficult approach. See, while simultaneously revealing Shigaraki's unfortunate backstory, humanizing him, and making the audience understand his tragic origins, Hirokoshi also made the choice to have him pull off one of the grandest massacres anyone in this series had ever pulled off. From that point onwards, Shigaraki started causing tragedies as easily as breathing. Not even just combatants. With one touch of his hand, Shigaraki would casually erase entire city blocks of people. All the while, Deku suddenly starts talking about some, let's redeem him, let's save the little boy inside of him. Honestly, if Snipe didn't miss those shots at the start of the series, the entire situation could have been avoided. Personally, it just didn't work for me, and I think to some extent, Hirokoshi realized that having him be alive by the end of the series would be somewhat unjustifiable, deciding to suddenly absolve him of all his sins by pulling one of those shitty plot twists shonen writers always whip out at the end of the series and pinning every negative event in Shigaraki's life on All for One, before having Deku mercy kill both of them, kind of trivializing Shigaraki's entire character in the process. It's just one of those cases where you can't push the narrative to forgive a character while not having someone that should be forgiven or has shown any reason to be forgiven in the first place. My Hero Academia's villain sympathy situation is a bit weird, but at the very least, the villains could actually permanently pass away at the end of the story. That is not and cannot be the case with the Joker. In comic books, whether a character lives or dies is directly tied to their sales. And Joker, being one of the most profitable characters in comic book history, is thus essentially immortal. And the stories that try to write themselves around this just don't satisfy me. What is the most evil thing your brain can come up with? Somewhere, in some comic issue, the writers have thought of that same exact thing, and there is a 7 out of 10 chance that Joker has already done it. And yet we're meant to act like, oh, the job is done, when he's put back into the same mental asylum that he'll break out of a couple days later. Time and time again, Joker has proven himself capable of escaping Arkham, killing like 100 civilians, then being locked up again. Despite literally torturing Batman's own son and permanently paralyzing the Commissioner's daughter, we're still meant to shrug our shoulders and let this guy live on. I can't even entirely blame Batman's anti-killing rule, cause why does the legal system keep falling for the insanity plea? Don't hit me with that bullshit. At a certain point, when someone has blown up enough children's orphanage for fun, you just have to put them down. The absolute worst part is that whenever the Joker is finally killed in stories, like he earnestly deserves to be, the writers pull out some "we warned you" ass storyline and have the entire world fall apart just to prove a point, like in Injustice, The Batman Who Laughs, or any story where the Joker dies. Like, I can accept the whole Gotham crime power vacuum thing, where the Joker somehow keeps crime in Gotham at bay, but I think that's worth not having your water poisoned for the 4th time this week. Enjoying the video so far? Why don't you show it by smashing that like button? We've been rapidly improving the percent of viewers who are subscribed, so if you want to see that number right below you hit 20k, consider subscribing too. Anyway, let's get back into the video. Many heroes are bound by their principles, unable to deliver justice even when faced with pure evil. But not all characters follow those rules. In fact, there's something even more satisfying about a hero who remains moralistic throughout the entire story, yet understands when justice must be served. Because the writers understand that you can still be a good, optimistic, and sympathetic person without turning a blind eye or pitying evil. Mahito is a perfect example of this. He isn't just evil, he's the literal embodiment of human negativity. In Jujutsu Kaisen, curses are inherently irredeemable, but Mahito takes it a step further with his sadistic cruelty. He doesn't act out of instinct or some uncontrollable nature. His actions are deliberate. He relishes in breaking Yuji, torturing and killing his loved ones right before his eyes, and testing how far he can push him. So when Yuji finally defeats Mahito, there's no righteousness behind his actions, no mercy and no pity. He wants Mahito to suffer. He misses strikes on purpose, dragging out his torment. And in that moment, the fight proves something. Yuji's morals mean nothing when confronted with pure evil. He wins only when he accepts that he and Mahito aren't so different, both driven by a cold, objective need to eliminate the other side. Because at the end of the day, the only moral response to true evil isn't pity or forgiveness, it's destruction. But my favorite example of this idea comes from Gon's final confrontation with Pito. Throughout Hunter x Hunter, Gon is portrayed as an almost naively optimistic kid. Every now and again, cracks do form in his character, hinting at something darker beneath the surface. But it isn't until the Chimera Ant arc that we truly see how deep that darkness runs. Kite wasn't just Gon's mentor, he was a stand-in for the father figure he never had. So when Gon discovers that Pito killed him, all of that naivety shatters. He doesn't just get angry, he completely loses himself. What makes this conflict even more compelling is that Chimera Ants, unlike curses in Jujutsu Kaisen or demons in Frieren, aren't inherently evil. They can develop human emotions, restrain themselves, and even act out of goodwill. So there is a pretty good argument for actually sparing them. And that's exactly what makes Gon's breakdown so tragic. Killing Pito wasn't about justice or the greater good. It was pure, unchecked rage. He threw his entire life away, consumed by vengeance and unable to see past his own hatred. So why do authors choose to spare villains who don't deserve it? The simplest answer is their messages and their themes. Not every story aims to depict a raw, realistic portrayal of justice or revenge. Some prioritize the idea that forgiveness is powerful, or that revenge ultimately isn't worth it, focusing more on their message than on the emotional reality of retribution. Both approaches are valid, but I do have to admit, few things are as satisfying as when an author crafts a villain that the audience truly despises, only to have the hero deliver the justice that they deserve, making them pay for everything that they've done. But what do you think? Which villain should have never deserved to be spared? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.